Ask. For over 20 years, the United States of America fought a war against Al-Qaeda and their guardians, the Taliban. Since the start, Afghan interpreters have been at the forefront of this war. The first interpreter, Hamid Karzai, would go on to become the first president of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. Thousands would follow him down the dangerous path of working with U.S. forces throughout Afghanistan in their attempts to beat the Taliban insurgency and hunt down Al-Qaeda leadership. Thousands of these Afghan interpreters have since relocated to the United States under the special immigrant visa category that was created for them and their Iraqi counterparts. But the SIV application process has always been Byzantine and glacially slow. Now, after a catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan that has seen the Taliban return to power, thousands of translators have been left behind with their families to face a grim and uncertain future. Through the years of my work in Afghanistan, I was blessed to meet a few of these interpreters. For this episode of The Ask, I sought out these good friends of mine and had a conversation with them to memorialize their lives and sacrifices. Please note that this was recorded earlier this year while there was still a dim glimmer of hope for the Afghan Republic. And further note that I had to record this episode on a different audio device due to the circumstances and location of some of our guests, so the audio quality may not be ideal. I am dedicating this episode now and for years to come to those we left behind. Now, let's meet our guests. Welcome to The Ask. I am Weiss Azimi, and on this episode, I have a very special lineup of guests. These are friends that I've worked with, friends that I know, friends that I've seen grow up around me over the years as we moved on in our lives. And while we all have a connection to our time working in Kabul, I won't say where, just out of concern for their own privacy. Obviously, their biographies might come to light. However, we all met in Kabul, but I know that each of them had a background as an interpreter for foreign forces at one point in their lives. I'm going to refer to them by a name. This is not their real name, but for the sake of our conversation, this is how I will refer to my friends for this interview. As many people have possibly read or seen on the news these days, Afghanistan is in a state of turmoil as the U.S. withdraws, and in the crosshairs of that turmoil are former interpreters for foreign forces, U.S. forces, and NATO forces. And so, looking at what's going on, I want to reach out to friends of mine who I love very much, who have that experience of working as an interpreter and finding out just what their work was like, what their lives were like, the challenges they faced on their journeys, and their hopes for their future. So with that, I'd like to welcome to the podcast Saji Jan, Hamid Jan, Tamim Jan, and Abazar Jan. And for those of you wondering, Jan is not part of their names. It's a word in Dari which essentially means dear, and you often use that for people that you consider a close friend. So let's start. I'd like to welcome all of you for joining the call. Let's start with a very easy question, beginning with you, Saji Jan. Where are you from in Afghanistan?
I'm originally from Ghazni province, which is about 2 hours away from the capital, Kabul.
Thank you for sharing. And next we have Hamid Jan.
I'm from Kabul.
Okay, and Tamim?
Yes, Weiss Jan, I'm from Kabul.
And
Originally from Kabul.
And Abazar Jan?
Yeah, I'm from Ghazni too.
Okay, I didn't realize that both you and Saji Jan were from Ghazni province, Abazar Jan. My next question for the group is, obviously, to work as an interpreter, the key thing for that job role was a command of English. And English was not a commonly spoken language in Afghanistan in the early 2000s, certainly, when the Taliban were overthrown by U.S. forces and Afghan allies. It wasn't a commonly spoken language. So I'd like to start there. Where did you first learn English? Once again, we're going to go right back to you, Saji Jan.
Yeah, thank you, Wes John. My English journey is very interesting, how I learned it. Obviously in Afghanistan, we do have the English language subject. I believe it starts after the 5th grade. However, it is not that strong for someone to be able to learn English from the school subject, from the public school subject. What I did is I took a private course. It's not my interest was not that the first time to just go learn English and work with U.S. forces. At that time, U.S. forces was not even crossing my mind. It was just my personal desire of learning English language. I went ahead and took a private course for 6 months, and it was a 6 months term or a semester that I took. It used to call conversation semester. So we used to memorize a lot of vocabulary, have a conversation in the class, And then as soon as I was getting off from high school, I was going straight to the course to learn English language, and that's how I learned it.
That is really interesting, Saji John. Was this in Ghazni?
Yes, it was for sure. It was in Ghazni.
Okay, interesting. For me, those sort of choices you make as a young person, it always fascinates me how it shapes your life further on. Hamid John, how about yourself?
Well, it's a good question, but I went to the English classes in Kabul, and I learned everything in Kabul, and overall I spent about a year at the English center to learn the language, and then my target was to become an interpreter, and I went to the school for that. I went to the English center for that, and yeah, so after a year I was able to talk a little, but not that good, but it was okay. It was not bad. And then I went to Phoenix, called like Phoenix or whatever. They recruit the interpreter, and I did the exam, and then from there we just moved. But yeah, I did everything back in Kabul.
Interesting. So it sounds like, Saji John, correct me if I'm wrong, you studied English when you were still in high school, correct?
That is correct.
Got you. And Hamid John, you'd already graduated from high school when you went back to study English?
That was my last year at high school, and I did this. I did English and high school at the same time. I did both at the same time, pretty much.
Okay.
But it's kind of like after school,
Got you. So it's an after-school program.
Yeah, something like that.
And what year was this for yourself, Hamid John? I'm curious.
Oh,
It might be hard to remember. It's a long time ago.
yeah.
Like 2003 or 2004?
It was 2007
2000.
that I graduated from school, and at the same time, I just finished English, and then I went to become an interpreter in 2008. But yeah, I finished out in 2007.
Got you. And yourself, Tamim John, how did you first learn English?
Well, John, it has long story.
I'm here to listen to it. This is why I'm here.
I started English during Taliban regime. In a very bad situation, there was one of my father friend. He was doctor. He know English, and we started English with him in his house for a while. Then I try a lot to learn it more at his school, then private courses, and sometimes in my father's shop. He had a shop, and his friend came over there and taught us English. We had English book and Holy Quran with ourselves. When the Taliban entered the shop, we opened the Holy Quran, and when they get out, and we started English in a very bad situation. But after that, when the Taliban regime collapsed in 2001, we started in private courses.
That is so interesting. So you must have been very small when you started to first learn English.
I graduated from school in 2005.
Okay. So you must be a little older than Hamid John. Interesting.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to hear that you started to first learn English underground during the Taliban regime. That's at your father's friend's place, the doctor. And Abuzar John, what was your process like? How did you first learn English?
First, I learned English in San Francisco. Before when I was in Afghanistan in 2006, I was like 13 years old, and then my father he recommended me to just go to the English courses. It was like short-term and long-term courses. I was young at the time, and then I had the opportunity to go through the short or long-term courses. Then hopefully I was graduated. I think at the same year that Hamid was graduated. And then 2007, and then I started going to the Kabul University. Then due to economical situation that I had at the time, I looked for job opportunities around me. So I started my job with Dancorp International, which was a subcontractor of U.S. forces back here in Afghanistan, and I was working in Kunduz province.
Understood. So the one surprising thing that I didn't anticipate is that all of you took the opportunity to learn English while you were studying in high school, or in your case, a little younger for you, Tamim John and Abuzer John. But it was all through schooling that you picked up your English skills, not like informally, let's say like watching a TV show or a movie. It was all through study that would have a big impact on where you headed. And so, tying your time in school and studying English, you've already mentioned parts of this, but I'm curious, how did you first find out about job opportunities working as a translator for foreign forces? Let's go straight back to you, Sajid John.
A lot of my friends and more closely my older brother, who is still in Afghanistan, Arif, he was interpreter with U.S. Marine already when I was going to, English courses. As I said earlier, my intention was not to just go learn English and work with U.S. Marine. However, once I graduated from high school and I was able to speak a little bit of English, then the circumstances made me to go ahead join U.S. Marine as a translator. And to answer your question more specifically, my brother was with Marine. That's how I found out about the job opportunity, and many other friends of ours was working with international forces, not only with United States, but with other countries' forces around Afghanistan.
That is interesting. I didn't realize that your brother kind of pathfinded that career for you, Sajid John, and he encouraged you to look at that for yourself that you got out of your education. Hamid John, how about yourself? How did you first find out about job opportunities with foreign forces as a translator?
Well, back at the time, the coalition force or U.S. military forces, they were in the center of attention to everyone, and everyone was like looking for a better job, better pay, and then make some good money. And then in any places that was back in Kabul or any other provinces, people were talking about like there's a place that recruit the people as interpreter, and that's how I find out from my cousin. And then right before me, he went become an interpreter, and then right after him, I was like, I already talked to him, and then he's like, yeah, go to these places and do this and do that, and then after I follow all his tips, and then I went to the company, as I told you before, called Phoenix, and then everything starts from there. But pretty much my cousin linked me to become an interpreter because he went right before me.
Got you. So it was another family connection there. Instead of a brother, it was a cousin who helped sort of point the way for you.
Yeah, and a lot of young people back at the time, they were interested to join as interpreter because of good pay, visa opportunity, and then a little more benefits around this back at the time. And that was the only reason. But the big reason was this SIV. For all those that they were interested to working with the military, was like one day they're gonna get their visa, and this is the only point that a lot of people are gonna work with them. And at the same time, you can make a good money out of that. But so that made me to go there and become an interpreter.
Interesting. So it was not even obviously for those listening, just so you understand, Afghanistan, even after the ouster of the Taliban, young people have always had a challenge as far as finding good paying work in Afghanistan, and working as an interpreter paid a lot of money in the early 2000s compared to other work you could possibly doing. So that was one motivation for a lot of people if they had the skills to sign up.
Because you didn't need to have any degrees or anything. All you can just have to have like good English skill, like talking a little, or just like writing, reading, or whatever, understanding, and you can earning a good money out of that. But that motivated a lot of people, a lot of young people after Taliban collapsed, and then everything's like so new to the people, and a lot of this English center make a lot of money too. But that was a big motivation for the people. Two things: visa and money.
Got you. Yeah, I didn't realize that even as far back as 2007, your main motivator for applying was the understanding that you might be eligible to immigrate under that visa program that they had for former interpreters. So even back then, you were aware of the opportunity that would be available to you if you pursued this career for yourself. Tamim John, how about yourself? How did you first find out about job opportunities?
Wise John, my big brother, he was interpreter at the Panjshir Puri. He joined in 2007. with U.S. force. And he encouraged me, he linked me to Phoenix, and in 2009 I joined with them. My first assignment was a Doris gun with 3rd Group of ODA Special Forces. There was a lot of hard missions. I attended on that. On that time in 2009, Hamid was at the Kandahar at the CAF, and we had transit over there for a week. Then that was for short time, that was for 4 or 5 months. Then we reassigned back to Kabul and gave the new assignment to Fab Bag of Tagaw. On that time, there was no transportation for interpreters. They told us to go by yourself, and my family didn't let me to do that. And then I joined again in June of 2015 with the U.S. Army.
I understand.
Until 2020.
So, like Saji John, you had an older brother who was already working as a translator, and he was the one who encouraged you.
For 5 years in Panjshir Priori with the U.S. Army, but still he's at Kabul and waiting for medical. Like me, we're both waiting for medical checkup. Last step, but 2 years that we are waiting.
I understand. Okay, thank you for sharing, Tamim John. And John, how did you first find out about job opportunities with foreign forces yourself?
When I was like in Kabul University, so as I told you that I had like economical problems, so I had lost my father, so I had to just get a job and take care of like the expenses. And then I was like working in a shop in Sharanau. It was like one of the like famous shops there, so lots of foreigners used to go there and like do the shopping and do their groceries. So I was always there just to do some translations for some people. So, and then one day the shopkeeper told me that, hey man, you can just ask for their like business cards, and then maybe one of them would give you a better job, or maybe you would be a translator. Then one day one of them came in, and he was Alan. He was from United States. I didn't know that who he was, but I asked him that if he can just give me his business card and if he can just provide me with a job. And then he was like one of the reasons that put me on this path. And then I started like my career as a like interpreter in 2007. In 2007, yeah.
Yeah, that is so incredibly interesting to hear, John, because unlike everyone else we've been speaking to, you didn't have a relative who was already working for foreign forces. You didn't have someone to tell you about what the experience of applying for an interpreter was like. You actually directly approached an American in Kabul and checked with them for an opportunity. And I was not aware that you had lost your father at a very young age. So you, at a very young age, you were responsible for your family. Is that right?
Yeah, kinda. I had my elder brothers, and then in 2007, yeah, and at the end of 2006, I lost my father, and then 2007. Besides like working inside the shop, I was like, I had like 2 sessions of like English courses with the kids. It was like all basic English. Like, to answer your question, yeah, I was like the only guy who had to take care of my mother and younger brother.
I understand. Well, once again, I think that it speaks volumes about the person that you are, that you walked up and you said, here I am and I'm looking for this opportunity. And, it certainly changed your life, the fact that you spoke to this American named Alan. And to follow up on that question about how did you first hear about these opportunities, I'm very curious what the job process was like in terms of like applying. So let's go right back to you, Sajid John. What was the job process like for yourself as far as applying as an interpreter?
It was pretty simple, I can say. And then, as I said earlier, my older brother was interpreter with the Marine already, and he was hired by the company called MEP, Mission Essential Personnel. And then Hamid John said earlier, they were located in the, I want to say a little bit east. It's called Othel area, and their camp name was Phoenix. So, my older brother already told me that, hey, there is a company that, I'm going to apply for a interpreter job. And then, long story short, he got the job. And then once I was ready, and then, as I said, the circumstances made me to go ahead and join the U.S. Marine. I literally went to one day in front of Phoenix camp, and then I saw many people just, waiting there. I just joined them. I was like, hey, I'm here to just apply for interpreter job. What's going on? And they said, oh, you're in the right spot. Just wait here until they call us. Do you have your taskira, which is our identification card, national identification card? I said, yes, I do have that on me. So they said, yeah, just wait here, and then they will just call us, and then we will go and then register, and then they will send us to the testing center. And then once we pass the testing, then they will let us know if you're hired or not. I was like, sure, yeah. So I waited there like for probably 30 to 45 minutes, and then one of the U.S. Army came out with a local person and then called everybody in. And then we went in there, same story. We, once they did our registration and everything, sent us to the testing center, and then we, took the test. Test was pretty easy and not hard at all. Probably, at least for myself, it was very easy. And then as soon as we finished the testing, they shortlisted from, probably 45 or 50 people. They shortlisted only 15 or 12 people who passed the test. And then they immediately sent us to the verbal testing, which, they used to interview with you to make sure you're able to speak and understand and everything. And at my time when they were hiring, they were more focused on Pashto language to make sure that the interpreter who are getting hired, they are very, very good in speaking Pashto. And luckily, I speak Pashto like my native language, Farsi. So that was not hard at all. And then I just, as soon as they had 5 minutes or 6 minutes talking with me, and they immediately said, just stand by and then just go ahead and then do the rest of the process. And then as soon as we are ready, we will let you know, and we will tell you what province you will be going to work with us.
I did not realize that. So there was, in fact, a very formal process that you had to go through. There's the written test, and then there's a verbal test, correct?
Yes, for sure. I just made it short. There was actually a very formal process. And specifically when I got hired, the process was it was simple, but extremely formal. You had to go through the CIA screening and everything to make sure you passed the background check and everything. They were doing those things. And then once I was done with everything, they sent me home and they told me to just stand by. And then about 2 or 3 days, I receive another call. They say, hey, we are calling you from, MEP Phoenix, and then we are inviting you to come and join our training. I was like, what do you mean by training? I'm not going to join military. I'm just going to be a translator. They said, no, the training for being a translator. So they, trained us for almost a week to just, explain the culture, how Americans work, the branches, different military branches and stuff, ranking, the chain of command and everything. So it was very, very formal when I got hired. However, when my older brother got hired, this process was not, there.
Yes, that must be true. If your older brother had been hired in the very early 2000s, I'm sure it must have been very, very different. And I cannot imagine in the span of a week learning about the full extent of the U.S. military, the different branches, ranks. I would have been thoroughly confused and I would have been fired. And I wouldn't have progressed. So I commend you.
I guess my nature, the mindset of me, that I have the mindset of learning everything, every time, all the time, everywhere. So that made it a little easier for me. But yes, you're definitely right. Within a week, it is so hard for everybody to just, learn all those branches, ranking, chain of commands and everything. But at least I'm grateful that we had that 1 week training, even though not too much. But imagine, the same life for my older brother or other interpreters, that they did not know anything, and just immediately they're sending you to the camp, and then go ahead, he's your commander or, the point of contact, and you're working with them and you have no idea what's going on. So,
Very true.
so for that reason, I'm very grateful of that training and everything.
I understand, Sajijan. And how about yourself, Hamid John? What was the process like? Was it similar to what Sajijan went through?
Yeah, but then somehow no. Like back at the time, the U.S. military desperately need the Afghan interpreter all over the countries, and that's why I was like, the process was so easy for me. I just took my birth certificate, went over to East Kabul, Camp Phoenix, and then stand in the line, took shower, then went inside and then do the written test, and then after that the verbal test, and then they're like, yeah, those people are passed, and then go for drug test, and we did the drug test, and then they're like, well, you guys are done, and we're gonna give you a call in a week, or it depends, 1 week, half week, 1.5 weeks. It really depends. if they're needed. Right after I passed all those process, I went home, and then 1 week later I got a call, and then they told me that we're gonna send you to Kandahar, Afghanistan, South Afghanistan. I was like, okay. And then I went back to the office, and they gave me my badge. Let's say they gave me the badge this evening, and they told me that get ready tomorrow. And then they pretty much give you like a 1 day or 2 days for getting ready to travel to whatever province that they assign you. So, yeah, then I went to Kandahar and I started my work. It's that simple because back at the time, as I told you, the military need a lot of people to translate for them all over to the village, all over to the provinces, and anywhere. And there was a lot of shortage of interpreter because nobody was ready to put themselves on a dangerous situation. Like, nobody really wants to die for nothing. But a lot of people are trying to die for visa. They don't give a shit. They're like, oh, yeah. Like, for me,
Agreed.
I was one of those guys, I'll be honest. Like, I was like, because the Afghanistan situation was not that stable. Even it's not right now. Even in the last 2-3 decades, it's the same like thing in different days. But I was like, I want to die or I want to take a visa. That's it, my man. And I just went from there. I was like, no, I'm not gonna stay in Afghanistan. So that made me to do all this process, and then that made me to make it done and come over.
Hamid John, you never change your story, and you call it like you see it. He said, I'm either going to die or am I going to get my visa?
Yeah, because the COVID, the
Hamid is a
Afghanistan
true
situation
mujahid.
is not stable to me. Like, it wasn't a situation that I could live there because I mean, I don't know. I wasn't born for there, to be honest. Because a lot of the things back in the country is not so like good as you see out here. Like, the only thing, there's no law. There's no nothing. We born in a civil war. We just grow in civil war, and we're gonna be dying in civil war. That's it. But we just want to see the life, the other side of the life, like what's going on, how the other people are doing their lives, all
Yeah,
this stuff.
yeah, I hear you. I hear you, brother. The world was opening up big time around that time. If I was a young man and I knew that there was a better world out there and I knew a way to reach it, I'd probably do everything I
Yeah.
could too. Saji John, you want to say something?
I was just saying that Hamid is a true mujahid, you know.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
Mujahid for SIV.
Oh yeah.
Mujahid for SIV fought to the fullest.
You know what? Why, John? Like, I remember my father told me that you will be die over there, or you will be losing your legs or your body or whatever. The situation is not a joke. Don't go to Kandahar. I was like, well, I will give a try. And when I went to Kandahar, I didn't come back in a 9 month. It was 9 month or 8 month of my first deployment. And then after 8 or 9 months, when I come back to home and he asked me again, don't go. I was like, well, halfway down. I'm get used to this stuff. I don't want to stay in Kabul back. And then I went back over. All that hard working was like, the result is that I'm here right now.
I understand, Hamid John. We will get to more of that experience in Kandahar soon in this interview. Tamim John, what was the job process like for yourself?
West John, as Sajad and Amit said, in 2009 there was very bad situation. On that time, a lot of interpreters did war everywhere in all provinces. But the newcomers, the interpreters, the peoples want to have assignment in safe places. On that day that I went over there, we were 60 people. They all want assignment in safe areas like in Pineshare, Parwan, Maz, Kunduz. I remember that site manager came over there and told us that we need interpreter just for Helmand and Rozgan. I raised my hand with 4 other people. Site manager told us that you know that there is very bad situation and you're gonna die. I told him yes, I don't care if I die because of freedom. I don't care if I die because of visa, as Amit said. Then I joined. We went through CIA screening, and I joined with the special forces.
Got you.
And went Uruzgan.
I'm curious, what is the CIA screening? What does it involve?
It was my CIA screening was for 3 hours. He asked a lot of questions about my family background, and he asked 5 or 4 important questions. He told me that who is Shahid, Taliban or Afghan army? I told him Afghan army because they're fighting for freedom, they're fighting for democracy, they're fighting for human rights. The other question was, he asked me that who is Shahid? Masood, Osama bin Laden, and the other Najib, Dr. Najib. I told him that Masood and Najib, because they did because of freedom, they did because of Afghanistan, because of their homeland. And there was a lot of question, and they want to know that this guy, they mostly want to know that how is he thinking about Islam or about, they want to read the mindset, you know.
Yeah, to just answer your question more clearly, the CIA screening, we used to call it CIA screening, and I'm not even sure if that was the screening that was getting done by CIA Department of United States or not. But the main purpose of that was to just make sure that they are hiring the interpreter. They are not the extremists. They're not
Right.
thinking about anything, as Tamim Jan said, that they are going to, go kill Americans, or they have some other kind of mindset to just go and be part of Taliban or stuff like that. And they wanted to
Right.
make sure. I mean, later on, as I said, when I was getting hired, my process was more formal, and they wanted to even make sure that whatever answers during that CIA screening or questionnaire that you were providing to them at the first time at Camp Phoenix, and then, for example, for me, I went through that CIA screening in Camp Phoenix, and then they said, okay, now you're going to be deployed into Helmand province. And then as soon as I got to Helmand, they did the same questionnaire again from me to make sure I'm sticking into my answers, and I'm sticking into my mindset, that I still have that mindset, to not be extremist.
Right, got you. So it was a very quick way to figure out where does this person stand as far as what he believes and whether it's compatible with the mission that they had. Right, I understand. John, what was the job process for you like, out of curiosity?
Well, when I got like the business card for this guy, so the other day I called him and asked him that if he can just execute his promise. So he told me just to come to his office. It was in Wazir Akbar Khan and was on 50th Street. I went down there and the guards were like in front of the big buildings, and they told me that you need to just give your like information why you're here, like those questions. And when I gave them all my information, my name was already assigned there, so I went to the like this guy office. So then I found out that this guy was like the program manager of like the Matrock program, which was like their kind of first project, and with like in constructions side, corps of engineering actually.
Got you. United States Engineer Corps.
Yeah. And then this guy referred me to the like to one to his HR director, and HR director told me that, are you ready to be a translator? I said, yeah, of course. And still I didn't know where am I going. Is it gonna be a war? Is it gonna be what? So he like introduced me like to his HR assistant, and this guy just went through like the contracts. I signed a lot of paper, and when it came to the like salary, I remember that I wrote down. He said that, how much do you expect to get? I said like 200. Then then the guy said that 200. Yeah, I requested like 200, and then this HR assistant, his name was like Parvez, and he told me just write more, and then I said 400. He said write more. And when it came to the like 1,000, I said 1,000 is okay. Then he said write more. I thought that this guy doesn't want me to be selected, so I wrote down 2,000. Then the director showed up, and he said that, okay, I checked your application and all your like demands. So and then he said that we cannot give you. And at the time I was going to just jump on Parvez and ask him that, why did you ask me to write down like 2,000? Then the guy said, then the HR director said that, okay, we can just only pay you like $1,500, and $1,500 at the time for me was like $1 million. So
that's crazy money. Wow.
And then he gave me some uniforms, and he told me that, get ready for tomorrow. We are just flying to Kunduz. And then I came back home, and I told my mom that I got this job, and nobody was believing me at the time. And I told him that, hey, I have this badge. I got the job. I'm leaving Kabul tomorrow, so I'm heading to Kunduz. And so that was so easy. But like Dine Group International was like a big company. We were like hired not just in Kabul. We were like formal employee of like Dine Group International, like from I think United States.
God bless Parvez. Oh my goodness. What a starting salary, Abuzajan. I know for a fact that many translators did not get that starting salary, the one that you got. So that was amazing. I would have probably fainted if I got that salary as a young man, you know? In Kabul.
Yeah, it was crazy at the time. Hard to believe it for me, like until I got the first month of the salary.
That is incredible. That is incredible. And it's a good thing that Parvez was there to advise you on a salary request. My gosh. I probably would have put down like 300 or 400, right? So it was good that he was sitting there watching you with your application and giving you some advice on what to put down there. We've seen bits of this in your answers. I'm very curious, where did you serve with foreign forces? Obviously, we've seen snapshots of this answer in what we've heard previously in this interview. If you could tell me, where did you serve with foreign forces and what did your work involve? Let's start with Sajid. Sajid, are you there?
I was working with U.S. Marine in Helmand province of Afghanistan, and then every time you hear from anyone that they work with U.S. Marine, that automatically should cross your mind that they were in Helmand, because U.S. Marine was only deployed in Helmand province of Afghanistan, nowhere else in Afghanistan. And then what my work was involved with, basically to go to face-to-face combat with the U.S. Marine and help them with the translation, and then to translate the meetings that they had with Afghan forces and the local people that they were doing their daily patrols, to just go check the villages, the people, and then ask them question if there's any, and then if there was any suspects that we thought that they are involved with the Taliban or terrorism, they used to arrest them. And then I was helping them with the translation, that what's going on and why they are here, and then what's going to be the process look like in the future for them and stuff like that. So basically, during the patrols, fight, war, combats, and meetings, I was helping them.
Thank you for that insight into what you were doing in Helmand, and thank you for pointing out the fact that you were with a very specific force component, the U.S. Marines, and that they were largely exclusively based in Helmand during their deployments to Afghanistan. Hamid Jan, how about yourself? Where did you serve with foreign forces in Afghanistan, and what did your work involve?
It's a great question. I was exactly in Kandahar, Afghanistan. And translating anything out of the base, like combat inside the base, outside the base, anywhere that they need interpreter, you have to translate the word to the local. And I serve in Kandahar, that's all.
Understood. And yourself, Tamim John, where did you serve in the country with foreign forces?
In my first assignment, we went by convoy from Kabul to Uruzgan, and we arrived at Uruzgan in a week. On the way, we faced with ambush. We found and defused the IDs. It exploded also around Uruzgan city during code. Then back in Kabul in 2015, I was at the RS headquarters with MOD. Our mission was RS to MOD, MOD back to RS.
RS is Resolute Support, correct?
Right, yep. And from 2017 until 2020, we were at the Afghan Air Force, Okap Camp, Ichkaya, and Afghan Air Force, and Afghan Academy, Air Academy.
Understood. I recall that you spent many more years working as a translator following our time together in 2015.
Almost 7 years or 6 years and 6 months, like that.
I understand. Thank you for sharing that, Tamim John. Yeah, I think it's interesting that you did a lot of work with the Afghan Air Force, because that has been very important as people report on what's happening in Afghanistan. A lot of commentators and a lot of U.S. military officials have pointed out that the Afghan Air Force will be very important to...
Yep, at the Afghan Air Force there was a station that was OIC, Operation Intelligence Center. We were all the time over there, but we had regional offices and branch in other provinces, like in Mazar, Shindan, Kandahar. So I was lead IT and back and forth to all that provinces.
Understood.
With Afghan Air Force aircrafts, C-130 and also C-28 on that fixed wings.
That is incredible.
That was all target package, mission, airstrike. We worked on that. We got the coordinates, make it packaged, target packaged, and then provide it for pilots to go and drop bomb.
I understand. So Afghan forces would relay targets to you guys, and you would translate that for your U.S. military counterparts, and they would then approve or disapprove the airstrike.
Our job was to help the Afghan Air Force officers how to prepare a package, taught them about situation, about type of aircrafts, about to find out about air threats, sea fires. We trained them a lot for 3-4 years.
I understand. Thank you for sharing that to me, John. I think it's
different ciphers from different provinces, and we were responsible to translate all that ciphers for advisors.
John, how about yourself? Where did you serve with foreign forces, and what did your work involve?
I started my journey as an interpreter in Kunduz. It's a province to the north of Afghanistan. Now it is too dangerous there, but at the time it was very safe. And then we were close by the Kunduz airport, and then it was like a compound for Afghan military, and the project was like by U.S. Army Corps of Engineering, and then DynCorp International was like your direct contractor. And then I used to like deal with translations. I was like with most of the time with my project manager, and we used to go like to the sites and to the meetings and to the city sometimes, and I used to do like all those translations and like interacting with the local people, and then that was like most of my job. And besides, I used to do I was like a supply assistant for a while too. I used to provide some foods and some materials for our compound. Yeah, so these were all my roles.
So your work was very different from the work that Sajid and Hamid and Tamim John were doing. You were working on essentially a construction effort in northern Afghanistan in Kunduz with DynCorp.
You're right.
I see. I understand. It's interesting to hear how one experience as an interpreter can be very different from another. In the case of, Sajid and Tamim, their experience is very different from yours. And following on that difference of experience, what a lot of people don't appreciate about being an interpreter is the fact that many interpreters, including yourselves, worked for foreign forces for years. And what that meant is that, an American soldier would deploy to Afghanistan at the most on a 9-month deployment. That would be probably the longest that they would serve. And then they would go back to the United States to rest, recover, retrain, and get ready to be redeployed again, potentially. But interpreters would never step back from the line. You would be there for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, however long you as an interpreter could take the pressure, could take the danger. You were there until you decided that you'd had enough. So interpreters often were put in more dangerous situations more often than the soldiers that they actually worked with. What kind of dangers did you face working as a translator? Let's start with you, Sajid John.
A lot of dangers. As I was telling you earlier, we used to go to a face-to-face combat with Taliban. And then I remember 2 incidents that I'm going to share with you. One time there was shortage of interpreters, and my point of contact, or you can say commander, asked me if I can just go help another unit with translating for at least a week. I went there, and then I was helping the other unit, and then we went to a patrol, and then during the patrol we got under attack of Taliban. And then we just didn't know because, Helmand province does not have a lot of mountains. There are some mountains, but it's a lot of deserts. But in the area that we were, there were few hills that you couldn't see the other side of hill. And then, the bullets and rockets are coming from everywhere on us, and we just don't know where the hell are these, bullets and the attacks are coming from. So we, did everything, U.S. Marine did everything to just make sure to calm the situation down, but we were not able to do that. So finally, we had to call the jet to just come and, bombard the area. So, the jet came in and bombarded the area. And then during that jet bombarding, we were so close to, get hurt by even our own United States jets, bombarding Taliban. That was one of the incidents. And the other incident was with my own unit. We were again in a patrol. We went on a desert to do our daily patrols, and we were told that there are few families that are kind of related or has some kind of connection with Taliban. So our goal was to just go ahead and do those daily patrols and keep eye on them to make sure what are they doing, what are they going, stuff like that. And then we saw a person from way too far on a donkey coming towards us. And then we yelled at him multiple times to stop, do not come this way, right? And then he was not stopping, he was coming towards us. And then finally, one of the my commander, which was the first lieutenant, he decided to just go ahead and shoot him. And then they shot him from I forgot the name of the, gun that is on the top, the machine that is on the top of the vehicle, that, a gunner is holding it the entire time.
50
So
cal.
he shot, yeah. So he shot him with that. And then literally when we went close to him, he was, literally his body was cut it in two halves. And then that's not it is tragedy, but what made us happy was that we found that he was a true Talib. He had weapons on him. He had, Taliban identifications and all the documents and everything. And then basically he wanted to come and do suicide towards us. So we stopped him. So that was the two very dangerous incidents that I can share with you. But there are so many more that I'm not going to waste your time on them.
I'm going to say something after I hear about all your experiences. I'm not going to react. I'm just going to pass around the mic and let you guys share. Hamid John, what dangers did you face?
It's a beautiful question. If you get captured, you're going to be beheaded. And that's it. And if you get captured, the Taliban they could shoot you. They could kill you. So, on the spot, they're even not going to listen to you. During all this combat mission, of course, there's ID, there's ambush, there's a lot of things. But on the first day, we signed the waiver. But if funny things happen to us, it's gonna happen, and we can take it. So,
Hamid, roughly how many IED incidents or firefights do you recall off the top of your head that you faced as a translator?
I've been hit 2 times by IEDs. One time, our mine driller been hit by IEDs in Arghandab, district of Kandahar, and the other time backside of car, like that combat, I forget the name of the car, but that big
The MRAP?
MRAP, yeah, there we go. So that one was hit by an IED to the backside, pretty much right backside. But yeah, we were fine at the car, and on the first one that they blow up the mine driller, the first wave is pretty much crazy. It depends where you're gonna hit. The first one was so hard that it's hit on mine driller. The mine driller is the one that it's in front of the hemrap, that it has a lot of pressure. They most likely use it for pressure pilot, pressure pilot IDs, and then it's completely blow up the mine driller, and all those pieces come inside the gunner and inside the car, and then the guy in front, the driver, neck was broken. He was yelling, and the other side, the assistant, the guy, there was a driver and there was another guy checking the map and all that stuff. I don't know his position, but team leader or someone was there. I don't remember who was there, but both of them were injured, and then they were waiting for the medevac. Medevac is a helicopter that come over and pick them up and take them to the hospital. But there was no one coming from other car to help those 2 person because of a secondary IDs, and nobody was really walking on the ground, and they were thinking that there might be a secondary IDs, or there might be a sniper to shoot them from a far away. Everybody was just watching that there was a camera inside all those cars, and there was camera in all those hemraps, and they were just keep monitoring the situation. But nobody was come to help us, and we were sitting in the car for another 20 minutes after they clear all those whatever on the radio, call the air support and all that stuff, and then they come from one MRAP to the other one, they didn't even walk on the ground. They just come from car to the car, and then they help those people, and then the guy went over to the ground, cleared the ground, there's no secondary IDs, and then the aircraft come over and took them to the hospital. So it is crazy. It's a bad shock, and I still remember that shock. And then after the blow up, 3 days after that or 4 days after that, I wasn't even able to talk. I was just dizzy, and then sleepy, and then even not talking well. But yeah, it's a bad experience. 2-3 time ambush and around of district, and that's it.
I'll tell you what, you say that's it, and each one of those incidents could be a lifetime, in terms of how it impacted someone. One firefight, one IED, and you faced at least 3 firefights, and you survived 2 IEDs. I cannot wrap my mind around the kind of psychological strength you'd need to have to go through those experiences and keep on working as a translator. I think after the first IED that I would have hit, I would have just turned in my ID and said, this is not for me, and going back to Kabul and working in a bike shop.
You know what? As I told you on the first question or second question, my goal was come to the States. I wasn't really give a shit about my life because I was thought of that if I could live in Afghanistan all my life, it doesn't really worth it to stay there. And that's you see right now. And that's you see after 20 years. I mean, if I was giving up over there, like, okay, I hit by IEDs, and now I'm going to give up, and I'm training my badge, and I'm going to go home. So then 2 years of my hard working was zero. The result was zero. And then went back to Afghanistan and went back to Kabul, work at a bicycle shop. And after all those years, right now, let's say I will be a bicycle shop manager, nothing more than that. But, like, let's say we in our language, we say tawakkal ba khuda, like, let's say God is great and let it happen, whatever happen. And that's what I was believed for. Let it happen. If my times arrive, I'm going to be die. If not arrive, I'm going to be in this state. It's that simple. And yeah, I'm here, Wajjan. Yeah.
Hamid John, thank you so much for sharing. Once again, I just can't wrap my mind around the dangers that you guys faced. Tamim John, what kind of dangers did you face working as a translator?
Western I faced, I remember 2 big incidents. When I was at Oresgon, we started moving from Kandahar to Oresgon. On the way, I remember that white Toyota Corolla started coming back up in our convoy, and I was at the MRAP, the last MRAP we were. It started coming. Our LT said at that time, tell him to stop or not coming. I told him in Dari, in Pashto, in English, to stop. He didn't. Then the gunner pointed him a lot. Stop, he didn't. He started and accelerated more. Then the LD said, charge your gun 50 cal and shoot him. When they shoot 3 bullets, then the car exploded and blew up. That was suicide bomber. And 100 or 150 meters far from our vehicle. Then in RS, early in the morning, at 8 o'clock, we were waiting at the gate of RS. The advisors come out and we should go to Imudi. A small kid, like 10 or 12 years old, he had the explosive vest.
Oh no.
And he exploded himself right in front of the gate. And we were over there 15 or 20 meters far from that incident, and we had hide ourselves in the back of school. That was 2 bad incidents that I remember. And still I'm ongoing through it.
Tamim John, thank you for sharing. I also understand that you also got into a very bad gunfight in Oresgun, and it was a terrible experience. Thank you for sharing, Tamim John. Abuzar John, what kind of, I understand that you were working in Kunduz with Dynacor and doing very different work from the rest of our friends here, but what kind of dangers did you face during your work, if any, in Kunduz?
To be honest, Kunduz at the time it was safe, but from other side, the place that they were going to build the compound was like on the lands which were like most of the time in use of local people down there. And there were like other people, we call them Kuchi, but I think in English it's like more travelers group.
Yes, nomads.
Yeah, I don't know the English term. So, and then we used to get like some rockets while, the constructions was about to start, and then the U.S. military and then Afghan military went down there and talked to the local people. They said that all we need is just job, and if you guys are over here to provide us job, you're good to go. You're the most welcome. But these Kuchi people, they did not want them to be there. They used to say that these are our lands and you guys shouldn't be here. We are not giving this land to you guys. Most of them was like saying that they are infidels and we don't want them to be in here. And And then the time that I was like directly targeted by like bad people down there, I had to go to the city to get something, and there was one of our security managers. He said that he's gonna escort me out of the camp to the city, and he would come back with me. But the road to the city was blocked, and I think there was some meeting inside the PRT compound. So we had to choose another route, and we had to go and cross a village called Azaka village, which was like a mix of these local people and Kuchi people. And once we went there, we saw that some informal people, they had guns. I mean, like Kalashnikov on their like shoulders, and they stopped the vehicle. They said that, where are you heading to? Who are you? And we introduced ourselves to them. And then they said that you need to just give us all your weapons and whatever you have, and this guy has to come with me. And then I told them that this guy is like working for you guys. He's going to build a compound for use for Afghan military. And then they said that, okay, now you both have to come out of the car. And then one of hopefully the local people who was like somehow involved, working inside the compound, he kind of recognized us, and he said that, hey, what you doing with these people? Let them go. I know these people, they're not bad people. They're just providing us job. And then they had some arguments, and they said that you guys are going to go this time, but next time I won't let any one of your vehicles to pass by here. And then we left there, and I was like shocked at the time, and I didn't know that even I would be able to get out of there alive. But hopefully I was alive. And one of my colleagues actually was like targeted by them, and he had like one of his hands, like he had a bullet on his like hand, and it was like mostly those Kochi people, which are now, I mean, more of them are like now Taliban. And I think it doesn't matter you work inside like in military phases or do you work in construction site, as long as you work with like Americans down there, it matters. It matters to the, to their like life, to their future. So I think it's not fair just to call people who was just directly hired by like just military side. We need to have other people who are like working outside of military. That's it. Sorry if I was talking.
No, that's a very good point that you make. That's a very good point that you make. You know, you were working for Dynacorp. You weren't working directly for the U.S. military, but you faced great risk at your work. And as you pointed out, you were almost kidnapped by these bandits in the area that you were doing some work in. So you're absolutely right, Abizajan. I fully agree with you that any kind of association with the international effort could put someone in danger, especially now the Taliban are on the march and taking over large swaths of the country. I'm glad you're okay. My thought here, listening to each of you share your experiences with me, is one, I'm very grateful. These are not happy memories for any of you. Almost being caught in an airstrike, Saji John, I couldn't imagine the terror that you and your fellow Marines must have faced in that gunfight. You know, you, Hamid John, with the multiple IEDs that you had to experience and the gunfights that you got into. Tamim John, same. You know, you also faced some terrible experiences through your work, and I couldn't imagine the horror of seeing a young child blow himself up to strike at international forces and to be caught up in an attack like that. And yes, you know, Abazarjan, going back to you, didn't, fortunately, at that time, you didn't face a physical danger to yourself, but certainly there were real risks involved for your work in Kunduz working for Dynacorp. And for me, I know all of you from my work at Tolo TV. I was circumspect about that at the top of the interview, but that's how I met everyone, here. And I met you at a very different time in your lives, and I could not imagine then all the hardship that you had already been through by the time you arrived at Tolo TV. It was an entirely different world, an entirely different career, but I'm very respectful of the experiences that you faced leading up to that moment in time when we all met each other. How did this work impact your families? Let's start with you, Saji John.
It impacted my family financially positive, but unfortunately emotionally, they were the entire time, during my, employment with U.S. Marine. I remember, the area that I was in, the cell phones were not working. We had a satellite phone that, we could just use it only once a week. And then sometimes, even weeks we were not able to use to get connected with our families. And I remember one time I called my mom after 3 weeks, and then, I could hear she was crying and she was worried, about myself and the concern that she had, that where was I? I am the youngest child. I'm not trying to, make everybody emotional here. The youngest child, and I was only 19 years old when I joined U.S. Marine as a translator. So it was too hard for my mother to see her youngest child away from her, not being away, but being away in a danger area and type of situation that anytime I could get killed. So that was very hard for her to tolerate. But as I said, financially, it impacted them positively because I was making, enough money to provide for them whatever they needed.
I understand. Thank you, Saji John. I think, yes, any mother's worst fear would be for the safety of their children. I imagine that they're very worried. Your mother was very worried about you, knowing that the kind of experiences your older brother and dangers he probably faced. She probably didn't want that for her youngest. Hamid John, what about yourself? How did this impact your family?
Oh well, it's every mom and dad, they love their kids and they don't really want to lose them, or they don't really want to see them in bad situation. But all my mom was like asking for is to call me, and then she was missing. I mean, she was missing me. But back at the time, there was no big impact on them. Like, since my dad already had a job and he was already working, and then he was like the head of the household and supporting everyone, and they don't really care about what I make on on the work. But I was pretty much spending my money on myself, and in terms of the money. But in terms of being a little far from them in the combat zone, of course, all mom and dad is worried about the situation, and emotionally, it's impacted them a lot.
I understand, Hamid John. I'm sure your father and your mother worried about you while you were working in Kandahar, even though you were not supporting them financially.
Yeah.
Tamim John, how about yourself? How did this impact your family, your work with U.S. forces?
Yeah, as you know, Wisdom, as my brothers, Sajad and me told, it emotionally impacted my mom and my parents. In my first assignment, I told them lie. I told them that I assigned in a Herat airport. They were safe, nothing, no problem. But I was in the middle of war at Orzga. After a while, they find out that I told them lie, and they call and cry a lot. That's why I resigned for a while because of my mom. And there was a lot of issue. Still, we got issue. When I was at Demudi, there was a lot of officers that they were my neighbors. Now they all know that I was interpreter, and most of them told for my mom that, hey, your son gonna die soon because he's still here. That's why my mom still she's worrying. My parents, my father, my brother, sisters, they're all thinking about the situation, and we don't know what's gonna happen. The day before yesterday, she heard that the interpreter dead. And Taliban killed him. She cried a lot, and she said, "What's gonna happen with me and with my big brother? Let's see."
Yes, I understand, Tamim John. You're talking about Sohail Pardes, correct?
Right.
Yes, he was driving from Kabul to Khost to pick up his sister when the Taliban intercepted him.
Right.
And the Taliban, they had set up a checkpoint.
Yep.
He panicked. They stopped. They shot his car up, and then they took him out. And they, as you said,
Right.
they beheaded him. And
Right.
that is what happened to one young man who provided interpretation
Serve
work.
for freedom.
Correct. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. How it impacted your family and how it's still impacting your family. I
Yep.
mean, John.
Yep.
How about yourself, Abazar John?
I have my mom and my younger brothers there, and then the thing is, when we came to United States, we thought that we are safe here and we will have like an Americanized life here. I mean, but the thing is, it's not like that. We are still like keep thinking about the people, about like especially about our close relatives, about family, especially. I mean, mom and dad. I think it wasn't that hard like for United States to provide just two more visas for like people who eligible to come to United States. So I mean, if they could just provide like two more visas for like their parents, so they could like at least, I mean, make a choice to come to United States or no. So in that case, we would be like, I mean, we would have like a better like feeling over here. But my family, they live in west of Kabul, Dashtibarchi, which is like now the worst part of like the Kabul, because most of like the Shia people that live there and Daesh, that area is like the main target of like Daesh people. And then I'm sure that if everything just turn bad, so everyone's relative whom like had cooperation with United States would be in danger.
Yes, Abazarjan, thank you for sharing that. And that's in fact going to be a really important question that I hope to bring up to everyone before this interview is over. I'm fully aware that many of you had to make a hard choice in your lives to take this opportunity to go to the US, but in doing so, you left behind your families. And that is a very, very hard decision for anyone to make. I couldn't bear going to a new, better life and then leaving behind my parents or my close siblings. I would have a very, very hard time making that choice. So I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, Western, sometimes when I want to compare my situation with my mother, I keep thinking that if I was a kid and my mom had the chance to come to United States, I mean, would she choose United States? I did that because she insisted, because she asked me to do that. And then, but from other sides, we see that how they sacrifice their cycle lives. So
it's very
difficult.
Very
difficult. Yeah.
It's hard to put into words sitting there in the U.S. and wondering how your parents are doing, whether they're safe and sound, your brothers and sisters. I understand exactly what you're saying, Abuzarjan. I don't experience it in the same way that you do, or perhaps our other friends here do. I don't really have close family in Afghanistan at this point in my life, but I do have friends. And every day, I check the news, and I'm in pain thinking about what my friends are going through, including you, Tamim Jank, because you're still there. You're still trying to make your way out.
Thank you, brother.
And that's what I experience. I have pain and anxiety for the people that I worked with, I got to know, and that I love that are still in Afghanistan. So I can imagine how that's multiplied many, many times over for you, Abazarjan, fearing about your actual blood family. It's got to be very, very difficult. So I want to thank everyone here for sharing how this opportunity shaped your lives and how it shaped the lives of your families too. Thank you for sharing. When did you apply for your SIV and what was the process like? Let's go with you, Sajid-Jan.
SIV's application was also a simple process when I applied. It literally took about 11 months for me to get the approval. What I did is I just went to the website of Kabul Embassy and then also the Department of Homeland Security, and then I applied for the SIV. There's this very simple process for that, and then all you need to have is just to have an HR letter to show at that time to show that you work with U.S. Military, and also a recommendation letter from your direct supervisor, which I had multiple of them, and and then you just have to wait until they process your application, and then once everything is processed, everything is good to go, then they're gonna schedule your medical in Kabul to do the medical check, and then go through the interview process again in Kabul, and then once everything is all good to go, then you just simply get your visa and come to the United States. At that time, it was only the requirement was only 1 year that you had to work with the U.S. military, but now I think they increased the requirement to 2 years. And then there's another agency, IMF, whatever, probably Tamim Jan knows better, or Hamid Jan. I did not come to the United States through them. And then what they basically do is that they're assisting you with your expenses coming to the United States. I came on my own expenses, but I got the visa through the SIV process.
I understand. Thank you for sharing, Sajid-Jan. I still will never forget the day when we were coming back from our work at Tolo TV, and you turned around to me and said, "Why, Sean, I'm going to the U.S. soon."
Yes, I remember that.
I was so incredibly happy. You had this big smile on your face, and I think at that point your SIV had been approved, right? And you knew that.
Yes, everything was good to go at that time. I was just preparing myself to just get out.
That was incredible. I'll never forget that day and the joy that I felt at the news that you had this opportunity in front of you. Hamid Jan, how about yourself? What was the process like applying for the SIV?
For myself, it's just like it took me 6 months from applying to get approval, and I only had an issue after interview. I waited so long, but before the interview, all my process was like completed in around 6 months to provide the paperwork, to recommendation letter, HR letter, and all that stuff, and then get the approval, and then it just took me 6 months. But my big problem was happened after interview. I waited 4 years to the visa. Yeah, it wasn't like that big deal before the interview, but after interview, it was really a big deal.
You know, I'll never forget that, Hamid John. It was a big part of our conversation together. When I met you in Kabul at Tolo TV, it was your 4th year, and I remember you'd waited so long for your SIV, and it was something that you were continually
4 years.
checking. I also never forget the night that the news came. You came over to my place. Do you remember? And I think
I was there too.
oh my goodness, you're right, Hamid John. It was both of you guys. And I think
One time I was there too.
you guys were all at my place. That's right, at different times. You guys were all, close friends of mine. I think also, did you come by my place too, Elvizar, John? I forget.
Yeah, I was there too. I was about to just find the picture to send it to you.
Yeah. We have great memories together. And I once again,
And don't forget, John, one time me, you, and August Pratama went to your friend's house. That was fun too.
Yes, that's right. That's right for a night of singing. I don't want to give away too much about your identity here, Saji John, but you're well known in Afghanistan. But we'll keep it private for your sake here. Abazar John, how about yourself? So sorry, Tamim John, what was the process like for you for the SIV?
I applied in June 2017, and it took 2 years that I got approval. In 2019, and in August of 2019, we had interview. My daughter, my wife, and I, we went to embassy, and after that, it has been a long time, almost 2 years. I'm waiting for medical checkup and for my visa to issue.
I see. So you just have one last stage to be called up for the medical checkup.
Yep, just for medical checkup. Our case is in administrative process. I don't know when it's gonna finish, and we are waiting for medical, right?
I understand, Tamim John. Once again, I'll be in touch with you separately after this call to find out how I can be of any further assistance to you and your family. How about yourself?
I think the embassy know that I am Hamid's brother or good friend. That is why they wanna take 4 years like him.
That's why they're pumping the brakes on your visa, just to give you a hard time for being Hamid John's friend. Goodness.
But I have hope. We have hope. I did good job, and I'm sure that if you do good job, good things gonna.
I believe that, Tamim John. I also believe that it's important to help your friends. So I'll be in touch with you and find out what I can do. Abuzar John, how about yourself? What was your process like securing your SIV?
My process took like 1.5 years, and from the day I started and the day I was in the United States. And what I found, the problems that I had was like there is not any resource so you could get your updates from them, and it's just an online process. But the thing is, if you have any problem like by filling the application, or if you have like any other questions in regards to your application, it is hard to be in touch with those people. And most of people like Tamim who are like still there, I mean, they're eligible to come to United States, but the thing is they cannot be in touch with them, so they can just make the process faster. So that was like the main issues that all like SIV applicants have. And then I did apply with my friend at the same time. He is still in Afghanistan, but it's my 5th year in United States. And then this process was crazy. We had the same recommendation, the same like HR letter or statements of employment, and all our documents were the same. But he's still there, and he's still waiting for his visa and all those requirements.
That is absolutely crazy. Thank you for pointing out the mystery behind how these visas are processed. The fact that you and your friend applied at the same time, had the same exact recommendation letters, had very sort of similar work profiles, and yet, as you pointed out, it's your fifth year in the U.S. and he's still waiting for his visa in the United States. Abuzar, I checked with you before we actually started this interview to make sure that this question was okay for you. Unfortunately, tragically for you, you did not get your SI visa in time before you became a victim of the violence in Afghanistan. Can you please share with us what exactly happened to you? You shared, I was in touch with some journalists recently who were interested in talking to former interpreters like yourselves, and I was facilitating those connections. And in one separate message thread, I don't know why I hadn't seen this previously, but you shared some graphic pictures of an injury that you experienced. What happened?
I was working with Tolo TV and I was unemployed like Hamid and Sajid, and I think Tamim, unfortunately, I wasn't, able to meet Tamim. I think if Tamim was in Tolo too, but there was a news against like Taliban, and then this news was released by Tolo TV.
I think they just reported on the siege in Kunduz, correct? That's what happened.
Yeah, and then that was like an excuse to them, and they previously had no positive comments about Tolo or Tolo TV, and then that was a good excuse for them, and they said that Tolo is our military target, and then everyone was very panic, and then we didn't know what to do. We were just employees. We used to go there, do our jobs, make money, and come out. We didn't care about what's going on. Outside of what's going on in politics, what's going on with relations, regimes or those people. And then the tweet was on their websites, and most of the employees, they left their job and they resigned, and because they didn't want to be there anymore. And then I didn't know that I would be the first guy who would be targeted. And then the same day I had my approval, the COM approval, the same day this incident happened. So before I go and, sit inside this bus, I was just talking to my close friends. Sajid knows better, I think, or Hamid, to Monica and my other colleagues. I was telling them that, hey, I got my COM approval, I'll go to United States. And then later when I was inside the bus and then that incident happened, I thought that maybe I got my assignment to the other board, so not to United States. And then, so they attacked our bus. They killed I think 6 of our colleagues who were very, very, very good people, who are very innocent people.
I know it's hard to talk about Azerbaijan. I was no longer at Tolo at the time when the attack happened, and I left Afghanistan. It was the early part, I think, of 2016 when it happened, if I recall. I know exactly who we lost. I still remember Hussein Amiri. I still remember my editor from Bokche Sim, Javed Hosseini, and Mehri Aziz from Creatives. And these are names that I know during my time there, but I'm sure that Saji Jan and Hamid Jan and you too, obviously you were there longer than I was. You knew these people better than I did. And I'm still shocked that they're no longer with us. And of course, I'm also incredibly sad that you were caught in that attack too, Azerbaijan. It was a devastating attack. You were badly injured. You could have easily have been killed yourself. And I'm so incredibly thankful that you survived and that you were able to leave a very dangerous place with your family and build a great life for yourself here in the United States. And it brings me joy, and that's one reason why I feel fortunate to be connected to you.
Western, I want to touch very, very, very short on that too.
Of course.
Me and Abuzarjan used to live in the same area, and then I was fortunate enough that I left Afghanistan before that incident happened to Abuzarjan and the rest of our colleagues. Whoever lost their life, rest in peace. And then, I'm so happy that Abuzarjan is here too. I was taking the same bus with Abuzarjan majority of the time, and I can almost guarantee that if I was there, probably I was taking the same bus that evening with Abuzarjan, and I'm not sure what would happen. Then the same route and everything. So I can imagine that something definitely would happen to me also if I was in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I'm incredibly thankful, Sajijan, that you'd left the country at the time and you were spared from that attack. The takeaway is that you all faced incredible danger throughout your lives in Afghanistan, whether you were working at Tolo TV or whether you were working as interpreters. And I think that people listening to this podcast need to understand that when they read about refugees trying to leave Afghanistan and find a safer country for themselves, that Afghan refugees are not migrating for financial reasons. They're migrating to save their lives. And it's been like that in Afghanistan, tragically, for almost the entirety of your lives. So I understand when Hamid just, decided that he was not going to put himself through that life experience, that he was going to do whatever he could to put himself in a safer situation. And on that note, and as we're getting close to the end of the interview here, because obviously Sajijan has got to get to work over there in Virginia.
I'm already on my way.
Okay. So this is a very important question because you guys have made this new start, but it's come with a huge sacrifice. Abuzarjan pointed it out earlier in the interview. But who did you leave behind when you came to the U.S.? And certainly any interpreter who participated in the SIV program had to leave their loved ones behind. So I'm curious, who did you leave behind, Sajijan?
My entire family. You mentioned earlier that you cannot even imagine having your blood family, back in Afghanistan in that type of situation. And unfortunately, I am going through that right now. I know I'm safe. I know I'm in the United States, and I have the life and everything. But every morning when I wake up, the first thing I do before even washing my face is just giving a call to my sisters, my brothers, my dad, to just make sure that they're okay, nothing happened to them. So, my entire family is back in Afghanistan, and then thinking about them every single minute while I'm here in the United States, it just gives me a lot of stress and, depression. I cannot get them out of my thoughts.
Sajijan, thank you for sharing. I'm praying for your family. I'm praying that you're able to work with the U.S. Embassy of Kabul to make sure that they are evacuated to a safe country so they can join you in the U.S. Hamid Jan, how about yourself? Who did you leave behind when you came over?
Yeah, the same thing. My mom and brother and sister. Right after my dad's been killed, I only have my mom, my brother, and one of my sister. So they left behind. But luckily, they're gonna fly on this Friday from Kabul to Tajikistan, and they're gonna be staying there. I just want to make them I just want them to be out of the country at the moment. Later on, I will start some paperwork and let's see where it goes, where it's end up. But at the moment, I just don't want them to stay there anymore.
Hamid Jan, I just want to say that I'm so incredibly happy to hear you are going to be able to evacuate your family through your own resources to Tajikistan. I know how much this is costing you financially, and I have a tremendous amount of respect that you're doing whatever you can with whatever you have to make sure that they are safe and sound. You're a very good son and a very good brother to your family. Tamim John, what is your situation? Obviously, your situation is different. You are kind of like Abuzar John's friend. You are still in the process. What are you looking at in the way of evacuating from Afghanistan, and who's going to come with you?
Now I think that my brother, he worked for 5 years direct with US Army. I worked for 6 years direct with them. But we think that we left it behind, and we don't have that much money to evacuate family to go anywhere out of Afghanistan and work. We're still here. There's no plan for evacuation. We're just waiting and see what's gonna happen with our process, with our visit. My brother with his 3 kids and his wife, myself with my wife and with my daughter, my one sister, and my father and my mother. We're all in Kabul, looking for some way to go out and see what's gonna happen.
Tamim John, well, one thing that I do want to share with you is that, you are a close friend and you're not alone. We're all here for you. And I certainly will be in touch with you after this call very closely to find out how I can be of any further assistance to you and your family. So hold on to that hope.
With my brother.
Hold on to that hope.
Last night I talked with my brother. I told him that if we didn't get the visa, then we will make ourselves armed, fight with Taliban. We don't want that they catch us like alive and kill us in front of our kids. They did that with interpreters in Kandahar, and we don't want that. So let's see. Situation is bad. Everywhere is war, firefighting. Let's see what's gonna happen.
We're praying for you, Tamim John. Abuzar John, obviously you were the one who kicked off this conversation about who you left behind, but do you want to provide an additional comment about what this has been like for you, Abuzar John?
First of all, I hope that Tamim will get the chance and make it to the United States, and he could at least financially take care of his family until he gets his citizenship and invite all his like close family members to the United States. And then
Thank you,
for
brother.
myself, yeah, you are welcome, bro. And I left my mother, my brothers, and my best friends, like my childhood friends, and then I left a lot of good people down there. I mean, they shouldn't be like under governments like Taliban. I mean, I left a lot of nice people down there. I still miss them, and I hope that one day I would be able to go there and meet them peacefully.
And this is where I think we are going to leave this conversation. I think this is a perfect place to leave this conversation. For those of you listening, it's very important to understand who the United States is leaving behind. People like Saji John, people like Hamid John, people like Tamim John, people like Abuzar John. And the truth of the matter is that your collective work saved lives. Your work saved the lives of American soldiers that you worked with, or American contractors that you worked with in the case of yourself, Abuzar John. Your work also saved the lives of Afghans that you worked with. You kept them from falling prey to the Taliban or to Al-Qaeda. And for those wondering what is in store for the future of Afghanistan, they need to understand the brutality of the Taliban. Abuzar John is living proof of what the Taliban are capable of. They attacked a news organization and killed several employees from that TV station just because they did their job and reported on a Taliban attack on Kunduz. And for the United States to call Afghanistan an ally and a partner, and to then leave it as it's doing now and resigning millions of people who believed in the United States to help guide them to a better future is, in my opinion, I don't like to try and insert myself in these conversations, but I will for this one. It's shameful, and it's tragic, and I'm sorry that all of you have to deal with the consequences of what's happening in your lives. I mean, 1 year ago, it was tolerable. You were there in the United States, or you were there in Kabul, and things were not perfect. You were separated from your families, or you hadn't secured your SIV visa, but the country was still intact. The Taliban were still in check, and you don't have the concerns that you're facing now for your loved ones or for your future. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you as a friend, and I want to thank you for what you contributed through your lives as interpreters. And it is my sincere wish for those of you here in the United States that you continue to build on this opportunity that you have right now. It's difficult. It's not easy. It's not like, as Abuzar John said, you come to the United States and everything's perfect. It is hard work. It is being divided from your loved ones. I am rooting for you each and every day, without question. And for you, Tamim John, the fact that you're still there in Kabul, it's so important that we understand who we are leaving. You deserve a chance to be supported, Tamim John. And I think that us Americans, we need to spend a lot of time thinking about who we leave behind as far as what our government does overseas. And I hope that this conversation was helpful in helping at least American listeners understand part of that. So once again, thank you everyone for your time. We just hit.
Before
Yeah, go ahead, Saji John.
Well, sorry, before we end this conversation, I just want to say also that United States withdrawal from Afghanistan was such a shameful withdrawal, and then leaving people who sacrificed their life to help U.S. military succeed their mission is not fair to leave them behind. And whoever is going to listen to this podcast, and hopefully, someone from Secretary of State or wherever, but I'm calling directly on President Biden and Secretary Blinken to not just giving multiple statements and saying in a press conference that you're going to do something about the people who work and help the U.S. military is not enough. United Afghan people who sacrificed their life working with U.S. military in Afghanistan need an immediate action and a fast action to get them out of that hell as soon as possible.
Thank you, Sajid John. Thank you. Those are powerful words, and I certainly hope that it reaches the right ears. Does anyone else? Officer John, please go ahead. Yep.
Thank you, Sajid, and thank you, Hamid, and thank you, Tamim. Sajid was a great guy who just, had like such a nice move to the music industry, so it wasn't easy. Besides, Hamid, he always, I see his posts on Facebook, and I see how much followers he has and how much he encourage people.
That's right.
To act like a human. And from other side, Tamim just said that if he can't make it to the United States, he would just stay aside of the other Afghan militaries. And then that was really kind of these three people. From other side, I want to say to the United States, especially as Sajid said to the President Biden, that if anyone who's hearing this voice, they have to know that for 20 years, United States was in Afghanistan, and they asked most of the people to cooperate with them. And now they're leaving all those people to the enemy, which United States was fighting with them for 20 years. And this is not fair. This is not good. They have to do their commitments. They have to stay there. They have to just, remove these Taliban or these terrorist people from all over, not just Afghanistan, from all over the world, especially from our neighbors.
Officer John, you make a really good point. The United States came to Afghanistan. They told the Afghan people, trust us, work with us, and we'll take care of you. And this is the end result of that cooperation, abandoning them to the enemy. And it is very, very difficult to witness, especially for myself as an American. And I have Afghan roots, so I also, feel the loss of a better future. But I don't want to put myself forward. There's a lot more at stake in this for you than there is for me. It's terrible what's happening. Listen, Abazar John pointed something out that I think is important. Keep on being a voice, Hamid John, to your followers. The fact that you have this large social media following. Keep on being a positive voice. Keep on being a beacon of hope and compassion. You're doing very important work with that. So please continue.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
You're welcome, brother. You're welcome. Tamim, any last words? The last word goes to you because you're still in Kabul.
Yes, brother. I appreciated wisdom from you and from my brothers, from your help and support. I know a lot of people that they work as a driver, they work in a laundry, they work as a guard, they work as a cook on the defect, but they got visa. I want to say that my suggestion for government, for Department of State, and for U.S. Embassy in Kabul is that please provide visa for those people that they were involved on missions. They were interpreters. I know a lot of interpreters that they left it behind, but I know a lot of people that they didn't work with the U.S. Army. They just find out a recommendation letter and they got visa. I have more than 20 recommendation letters from different advisors, from high-rank advisors. I got recommendation letter from General Buchanan. He was deputy for RS. I worked with full bird colonels, with majors, with colonels, with lieutenant colonels. Still I'm waiting. I don't know why, but I have hope that one day I should make it. I appreciate it from your help and support, brother.
Of course. Tamim John, the last word goes to you. And thank you for sharing that last thought. And for those of you listening, I would like all of you to think about who we're leaving behind as we withdraw from Afghanistan. Everyone, thank you for making the time for the call. Tamim, take care in Kabul. Sajid, good luck with your workday. Thank you for hanging on to the call. Hamid, enjoy your sleep. Abazar John, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Ask. Since this episode was recorded, the Republic fell to the Taliban. Tamim and his brother Qadir were able to escape Afghanistan during the evacuations and are taking their first steps towards building a new life for themselves in the West. Sajid's older brother Arif was not able to escape and and remains trapped in Afghanistan, along with many interpreters like himself. Hamid was able to send his mother and siblings to Tajikistan well before the fall of Kabul, and he's now in the process of bringing them over to the States. His sister and her family, however, remain trapped in Kabul. Abuzar's brother also remains trapped in Afghanistan. He has been waiting for months for an HR letter authenticating his work for the Western effort.